I know a lot of people are watching the Senate hearing this morning. Josh Hawley is excoriating the director of the Secret Service for not punishing anybody. There's going to be a lot that's going to come out of that today. But I wanted to talk about something, and I wanted to get it out because there's a cycle happening now that is time sensitive. And you know, when I'm done with this, I'm going to go back and watch that hearing on 2X or 1.5 because they waste a lot of time in those hearings. But there will be interesting stuff to come out of that. I wanted to come over here today because this is the lodge, the Free and Accepted Masons. What is it? It's the Grand Lodge. Free and Accepted Masons. Now, I mean, this thing says 1781. You see that? Was this building here since 1781? It might be. They are Masons. Look at the stonework. It's an impressive building, I'll tell you that. It's well maintained. Now, here's something interesting that I've probably noticed but maybe haven't discussed. This archway pattern above the curved windows, I see that on buildings on Jeffrey Epstein's island. Did people notice? Remember that blue and white building? It had a pattern just like that. I don't know what it means. And by the way, I'm not saying Masons are bad. I'm not saying that, you know, Masons did something. I'm just pointing out some of the mysterious aspects of this. A lot of people realize that the Freemasons have been around for a long time. And the reason why I'm here right now is because, you know, on July 13th, when the news broke of the Donald Trump assassination attempt, well, let's look at this a little more. You know, this American Glass research, really elaborate. What is that? Is it gold plating? So I mean, it's a fancy building. Oh look, here's what does it say? It was built in 1910, so maybe the Freemasons in New York were established in 1781, but this was built in 1910 by the trustees of the Masonic Hall and Asylum Fund. It houses the offices and meeting room of the Grand Lodge F and AM of the state of New York, Free and Accepted Masons of the state of New York. So where are the Masons who have been rejected or have to pay? I don't know. There's a lot about the Masons that I don't know, but when I heard of this American Glass research, here's an asshole on a bicycle on the sidewalk. When I heard about American Glass research, just something about that, it sounded weird. Now, on the one hand, it's a company started, I don't know, maybe in the 50s or something by a World War I guy. So sometimes those companies and the logos are a little, you know, General Electric logo is weird. And that General Electric, General Motors, these sort of, I don't know, Park-O-Meter, we have these weird names and it's hard to tell. I can't say this is not a science, right? This is a hunch. This is not evidence. You know, looking at the logo for American Glass Research and saying, ooh, that looks to me like a reference to the Freemasons' compass, that's not really scientific. That's a subjective opinion. From my point of view, I think that looks like, look at this, a little dog water bottle. What an interesting invention. So you can travel with your dog and they can drink anytime. Smart people coming up with useful inventions. I bet that dog loves that. The guy's having a nice little day out with his dog. But American Glass Research, I was like, hold the phone there. How the hell did the guy get up on the roof? And then I just saw the logo right away. For whatever reason, it's not scientific. This is a hunch. Hunches don't solve cases, but they might lead you to evidence. Because my hunch was something was weird about it. And I started investigating the place. Dr. Frank Preston, who had founded the place, we learned that he was maybe the leader in the field. He was an optical engineer in the United Kingdom during World War I and then came to the United States and started Preston Labs and American glass research, and they've told us there's a limited amount of information available about Dr. Preston. Obituaries and, you know, even essays written about the guy. He was pretty well known while he was alive, and definitely what you would call, I think, a Renaissance man, in that he's an engineer, but he was also an ecologist, an environmentalist. I think he was a bird expert. This guy's into all kinds of stuff. So all these different societies that are normally like PhDs in this or that had this guy in there. And so he's one of these guys who seems to be a genius about everything, and they've admitted that he was a civilian observer at the Bikini Atoll atomic tests. And from that, I surmise that really the only logical reason that I can think of as to why you would need a glass expert at an atomic bomb test, particularly in 1946, when that stuff was super top secret, I think they wanted him to investigate how a nuclear blast forms this glass-like substance called trinitinite, I believe is what it's called. And it's a glass compound that forms when nuclear bombs are set off in the desert, and there are aspects of it that aren't well understood and continue to be studied by scientists today. I would presume unknown compounds with new observable properties are of interest, because if we can figure out how to manufacture something useful with that, who knows what you could do with it. Consumer products, weapons, aerospace technology. So they're investigating that, and so it seems to me this guy, Dr. Preston, established some kind of top secret and very close relationship with the intelligence community, the Department of Defense, the Army, the Navy. Who the hell was doing those tests? People could go research the Bikini Atoll atomic tests ad nauseum. That would be a useful thing to do. Crowdsourcing, it's good like that. There's going to be somebody out there maybe who, my grandfather was doing something with that, and here's a picture. Damn, wow, there's a picture of Frank Preston that before now maybe nobody thought was interesting. But that's what I'm getting at with crowdsourcing the truth. You know, I mean, I could go out to dinner with my friends and talk about these ideas, and then what's it going to be? 20 people, 30, 100 people in a year hear this? I make a video like this, hundreds of thousands of people can see it. Somebody's going to know something that advances this forward. Crowdsource the truth doesn't mean that I know the truth. I'm trying to find the truth and relying on this crowdsource method to do that. And so what I've discovered over the past 7 years since I created Crowdsource the Truth is that there are people who don't want me or the viewers of this show to know the truth. And I can't say that I'm amazed any longer, but I'm now constantly aware of the myriad ways that they try to thwart whatever it is that I am trying to do. And it's not just me, it's anybody who wants to challenge the narrative, particularly with strong facts. If you want to go out there and talk about nonsense all day, I don't think you're going to get too much pushback. The problem is when they want everybody to believe that Thomas Crooks was the one and only shooter and he died on the roof, but there's so much evidence that shows us that something incredible was happening in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13th. And by incredible, I mean, there is very little doubt, I think in most people's minds, and certainly in my mind, very little doubt that elements, not just irresponsible incompetence, elements of the Secret Service and probably others not only knew about this, they planned it, they were pivotal in the execution. It just couldn't have happened. So the other thing I want to talk about is Dr. Chris Martin, because I say he's a social engineer. And there's a lot of new viewers on Crowdsource the Truth. They're like, wait a minute, social engineer, what are you talking about, Jason? I saw a picture of the dead guy on the roof, and that was interesting, so I'm watching your videos, but what the hell are you talking about? A social engineer is someone who endeavors to convince you to do something that is against your own best interest in a general sense. To simplify it, it's somebody who's lying to you to achieve a goal. But it's not just your kid wants to go do something that they know you don't want them to do, and so they tell you they're going to a friend's house. I mean, that's obviously deception, but social engineering is much more complex than that. John Cullen and I, for months, have been doing a regular show called Web of Deception, where we focus on the social engineering that I have been subjected to, primarily by George Webb Swigert, his brother, and a team of morons that they persistently hang out with. It's weird people around me here. Let's let this lady walk. But this is stuff that I have personal, first-hand experience with. And by the way, I'm sharing my opinions about this. Lots of times, things that I say are opinions that I've formed from looking at facts and evidence in the public domain. You might look at the same facts, you might evaluate the same evidence and come to a totally different conclusion than I have, and that's totally fine. I am not trying to tell anybody what to believe. I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do. I hate it when people try to tell me what to do, and so in trying to make myself more effective, I try to avoid things that I know I hate and that lots of other people hate, like directly telling people to do stuff. Now, people say, well, but Jason, you're always telling people not to ride bicycles on the sidewalk. Right, because if someone is doing something that directly endangers me, then I might tell them to stop it. But in other words, I don't want to go up to random people that I don't know, whether it's on the internet or whatever, and just start giving them general advice, like you need to team up with this guy. You need to put your personal differences aside and be a patriot and do whatever it is some person on the internet running a Twitter account with an obviously fabricated name and false picture wants me to do. That is one primary vector for social engineering, social media accounts, because they're easily anonymized, and many of them have been created in a way that I don't know if it's impossible to verify, but it's pretty darn close. It's certainly easy to create inauthentic accounts, and we've been talking a lot about doppelgangers and identity duplexing. I've discovered more identity duplexing at the Butler Farm Show Fairgrounds on July 13th. We saw someone was sending around a news clip. Actually, this is one of the first news clips, and it explains something. One of the first news clips I saw when people started talking about Maxwell Yearing and Keenan Hooper. They're arrested at a Trump rally in Pittsburgh in 2016, and this makes it to the local news. I can't remember if it was KTAE or another one, but it was like ABC News affiliate in Pittsburgh. And it shows them at the riot getting arrested, and the chyron, the graphic with the words below the picture of the mugshot, it shows Max Yearick and Kenyon Hopper, Hopper, but that's not his name. They're showing you a picture of Keenan Hooper, but they galvanize it in a news broadcast that is preserved on the internet with false information. Now that could have been a mistake. Hooper, Hopper, little dyslexic moment, double O, double P, but I remember I was having that confusion when I was initially looking for the guy, and I couldn't find him right away because I think I was sometimes searching for Hopper. And then somehow I just realized it was Hooper without even going back to that original ABC affiliate from Pittsburgh broadcast, but that broadcast just came up again yesterday. I could tell by the look in his eyes that guy wanted to be on the show. But that video came up again yesterday, and I said, now wait a minute. Whether they meant to or not, the news is assisting Keenan Hooper with his identity duplexing efforts. Now, I also want to remind people that I had mistakenly thought that images of our buddy Eric DeFelice with his shirt off, jumping around with a big beard, and then getting arrested by Secret Service agent Dirty Sanchez, I thought it was Keenan Hooper. They look a lot alike in photographs. Yes, one has brown eyes, the other has blue. That's a detail people noticed. By the way, there's things that can happen that make a detail. I agree, that was an important detail to notice, but one detail like that doesn't necessarily invalidate the question or the evidence or the pursuit of why does this guy look so much like him. If that guy had blue eyes, the primary difference would be gone. People say, well, the beard looks different. Yeah, it does look slightly different, but one picture is 6 or 7 years older than the other. One guy is photographed on a hot, sweaty day where his scraggly beard might be doing whatever. My point is, when you're looking at photographs, particularly from people's cell phones, you don't know what condition the phone is in. You don't know what color of stray light might have been hitting the lens and affecting the white balance. You don't know how the image compression built into the phone is averaging the color of pixels with the white sclera of his eyes right next to the brown, in this guy's case, blue in Hooper's case, but his hair is brown, his beard is brown. There's things that can happen in videos that don't necessarily represent what happened in real life. And I'm not talking about malicious, intentional manipulation. I'm talking about artifacts that get introduced into videos just through the process of recording the video. It's a little bit like Schrodinger's cat, if people are familiar with quantum mechanics. I don't know if lay people would be more familiar with quantum mechanics than they would video compression, but in other words, the very act of recording the thing changes it in some way. You're not looking at an actual duplicate. We're looking at a facsimile, and it's important to understand the capabilities and limitations of the technology used to create that facsimile so that you can know if you're actually looking at evidence or if you're looking at some random flying noise and nonsense. So we had this video come up, I guess Saturday or maybe Saturday night, Sunday, something like that. Maybe Saturday night. It came up a few days ago. I'm talking about this Stewie Dave douchebag who's got the shaky vision. This video is going to give you epilepsy if you haven't seen it. I stabilized it. Do I still have that? I thought I had a stabilized version in here. Let me see if I have that. Anyway, people can see that on Twitter. If you're following me on X, maybe I don't have that stabilized version here, but people can see that. Definitely follow on X. There's been a lot of action on X lately. People can follow me there at JG_CSTT. So what happens? So this Stewie Dave video from an eyewitness who was there, who was near the American Glass Research Building, and he's got his phone pointed right at it, but it's terrible. It's exceptionally bad, exceptionally unsteady. And people say, oh, well, guns were blazing and he was scared and whatever. Yes, I agree, but if you're trying to document the thing, okay, when he's running, there's going to be moments of shakiness, but the guy can't sit still and just point the camera at them. What the hell is he trying to do? Is he trying to document this, or is he trying to create a video that is going to be deliberately filled with artifacts and problems that make it difficult to tell what we're looking at? And above and beyond that, this 20-year-old dope, he's told us. You see it on video. He's approached by the Secret Service, and he tells us the FBI had the phone for like days or something, gave it back to him, and then here's the video. And moreover, the video has a red text overlay with his Twitter handle on it, which I get. People don't want, I mean, he's not a journalist, so from that standpoint, why does he care about people, stealing his scoop or whatever? And it's one thing when it's Laura Loomer finds out that the daughter of the judge is making money as a that's one thing. Nobody's going to live or die, and frankly, even if, and it was very important. I don't want to minimize what Laura did, but you know what I'm saying. They're not investigating a murder over whether or not that judge's daughter made money. It's a different thing. Corey Comparatori is dead. He's got 2 daughters and a wife who have no father there now. And this fucking kid is worried about making a documentary. Here's a message for you, stupid Stewie Dave. Nobody gives a shit about a 6-minute documentary about shaky footage. So let's examine this asshole FBI plant, Stewie Dave. And see, what's interesting is I knew this kid was full of shit from the jump. And I'll even explain how. I don't like doing this because it gives them insight into my process. But it's like, you know, when you turn 17 and you can drive, and you're still in high school and you're still a kid, but you're kind of becoming an adult, and you can, you know, ask girls out to dinner and take them there and stuff. And then, you know, you're in high school. So you go up to a beautiful girl at her locker. Hey, do you want to go to dinner with me on Saturday or Friday or whatever? And she's also 17 and nervous and awkward. And oh my God, here's some guy that I'm not interested in putting me on the spot, asking me out to dinner. There's certain people who the first thing that comes to mind is to say, sure. Then Friday rolls around, after school, 5 o'clock, call her up, where are we going? No answer. And try her again at 6. Well, maybe she's still in the shower. Around 7:30, 8 o'clock, you're pretty sure this dinner isn't happening. You're not doing that when you're 50. So there's things that you learn from experience. Look at this, Van Leeuwen ice cream everywhere. There's things that you learn from experience that you're generally only gonna know from having experience. And so my experience in interacting with social engineers, deceptive, lying, FBI affiliated social engineers for the past 7 years, it's taught me that if it's 5 o'clock on Friday and we don't have an explicit dinner plan, it ain't happening. Now, at the same time, you don't want to jump to conclusions about people that you don't know. So I gave Stewie Dave a lot of rope. First, it was, you know, I said to John, don't evaluate this video because it's so reprocessed and so manipulated. Even if he didn't intentionally mean to alter it, it's just so altered that it's bad evidence. And John got upset with this. We almost got into a fight about this. John is very forceful, and people see that. He's always commenting that, you know, I'm the only one who can deal with him. It is a little bit like riding a bull, you know? You watch the rodeo, and they have that guy in the pen or whatever with the bull, and it's like smashing. It's like 4 cowboys pulling the thing, and it's like smashing the guy. You can get your legs smashed, but then, you know, when you get out there, the guy who's on top, I guess he's controlling it somehow or just staying on top of it. Sometimes the bull goes crazy. If you're in the stands, you don't want to go down and pet the bull. It's going to kick you in the face, right? And the guys who control me come over and tie the ropes around its nuts and do whatever. I don't know who came up with all this, but it's difficult to control the bucking bronco. It's powerful, and that kick really sends stuff flying. So my point is, I just got, you know, I was telling John, look, this is just decimated footage, way below the original resolution that would obviously be in this camera. And his point, which was valid, he says, hey, it's evidence, and you got to work with what's available. This is how I did Vegas. The cops redacted stuff, blah, 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 blah. There's an element of validity to that. And certainly on Sunday night or Monday or whatever it was, when that was the only version of that evidence available, somebody's doing their laundry over here. When that was the only version of the evidence that was available, I think commenting on it and making observations about it was interesting. What the hell is going on over here? Obviously, there is some evidence in there. I mean, there's sound, there's a horse walks by, we can see people, we might see other cameras that other people will have that could lead us to other better evidence. Oh, this is Mark Levine. I think this guy is the comptroller, and accounts that I follow thinks this guy is a stupid dick who's ruining New York City. Is that him right there?
All right, thank you for coming out here. All right,
You're
appreciate
Mark?
it. All right.
Are you Mr. Levine? I'm a constituent. The city is running terribly. You got to fix it.
All right. What do you need, sir?
I'm talking to him about how bad a job he's doing in running the city. Do you guys look around and see the garbage everywhere? Why'd you walk away from me, Mr. Levine? I want to talk about the terrible job you do. Don't put your fucking hand on me again. Do not touch me. Do you understand you're in public and what I'm doing is legal and you touching me is not?
Extremely rude?
No, you fucking touched me. I'm allowed to be rude.
It may be illegal, but it's not very polite.
Fuck you. Mark Levine, this city runs like shit and you need to be voted out. Your guy just assaulted me. You're a fucking asshole. Don't touch me. Fucking Mark Levine. Get the bicycles off the sidewalk, Mark. Sidewalk. People are getting injured by this. Electric bikes are catching on fire. You need to do something other than glad-handing every idiot around here. Fucking loser. Excuse me, sir. Don't put your fucking hand on me. Excuse me?
You going off on the guy? He's doing his job.
I didn't ask for your advice. Keep it to yourself. Keep selling the bullshit and keep it to yourself. You guys have permits to be selling here? Mind your fucking business! And then of course the broadcast goes out. Well, that might have ended the broadcast. I wonder who's standing there to end my broadcasts at these moments that they want them ended. All right, so people will say, oh, Jason, you were giving out such good information, and then the broadcast ended. Maybe it's over. I hope it's not. Let's see if it resumes. Are we back? Well, we're probably going to be back on a new live stream if this one's not back. Sorry about that, everyone, but you know, see, I can't contain myself. I've seen that guy on the internet talking about crap for a long time here. I think the broadcast ended. I can't tell. Well, anytime the broadcast ever ends, there will definitely be a director's cut follow-up. Sound level alert, sorry. There's always going to be a follow-up, and if a broadcast gets cut off or you're looking for more of it, it'll be on a director's cut for the sponsors. People can go to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth or crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And you can support this show. People might not approve of that behavior. I'm sorry. Sometimes I can't control myself because you see that guy, he's a neighborhood politician and he's there. He didn't even want to talk to me at all because he could tell by my demeanor and the way that I speak that I'm not gay and I'm not a Democrat and I'm not down for his brand of bullshit, like allowing every idiot in the world to come to this city and for us to have to pay for them while that guy is grifting undoubtedly and the city is turning into a pile of crap. What person in their right mind would possibly re-elect anyone who has anything to do with this? So finally, I think this is the future of garbage. I think these are the bins that the mayor was talking about. Look at this. This is something that took from 4 months, from March, April, May, June, July. 4 months to get this, and what we're hearing is these are being stolen and used by homeless people because this looks like a plan an idiot came up with in a drunk weekend. This should be something that's installed in the street, that interfaces with a machine, that comes and picks up the trash, that is difficult for thieves to acquire. Now it just tried to cut again. Is someone following me now? There's a lot of technologies that could be used to disrupt the broadcasts. There's no doubt about that. What the fuck are you doing, man? You don't have the right. It's crazy. See? And then everyone's upset that I'm yelling. People are going to kill people with bicycles and vans. Unbelievable. So where was I? Social engineers. they're trying to launder information into the public. This kid, Stewie Dave. So the point is, I could tell he wasn't going to give us that footage, and I told Cullen not to analyze it because what he's saying is, the FBI had it, they didn't notice, they looked at it and they said this is fine, they're too stupid, I'll find stuff that they can't even see. And arguably he did, but the problem is, this is not evidence. This is like an anecdotal video. The guy might as well tell you, I went to the event and I saw muzzle flashes out the window. In certain ways, that eyewitness testimony would have more value than what he's given us. Because, stick with me on this here. We had determined, people who have been watching for the past 2.5 weeks are aware that Sunday morning I woke up and called Cullen at like 7 o'clock in the morning and I said, you know, something occurred to me last night. There's going to be at least 3 shooters. Random trash can thing sucked. I don't know what you mean. Oh, the plan sucked, yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It just occurred to me that there would have to be at least 3 shooters. See, it's stuck in this recover broadcast mode. I don't know if people are... There had to be at least 3 shooters because I think everybody, or a large number of people at least, agreed that this didn't seem like something that could be done by one guy who sneaks up to the roof. And so that inherently means, and the second that happens, you're just not gonna have 2 people doing this, 3 people doing this. There's going to be a lot of people who know. So it's either one guy who does it and tells nobody, or it's a huge number of people that need to do a large number of things to make sure that this thing works, because if it doesn't, they got big trouble. And so I presumed it was a large conspiracy from the beginning, and that if you were going to plan that, your insurance policy, I mean, you wouldn't have one. You'd need to make sure that the target was neutralized. And of course, we know the target in this case was President Trump. So they're going to want to make sure that whatever they're doing would kill Trump. And to do that, you need a fail-safe plan. You need redundancy. Everything military relies on double redundancy. You don't have just, you know, one GPS system in the airplane and the whole entire plane relies on that. They have multiple redundant systems so that if one fails, at least 2 other need to fail for the aircraft to be in a fatal condition. And this is such a mission-critical effort, the killing of Trump, for them, that they couldn't let it fail. And so it occurred to me, and also because so many other aspects of the case were resembling aspects of the JFK assassination that I've been studying for 31 years, it just occurred to me that they would use the same technique in this kill box, this idea of a triangulation of fire to create a 3-dimensional target zone, that just the odds of the target in that zone surviving are so impossibly low, it's just a virtual guarantee that he'll be killed. And people are saying, oh, so how did they all miss? They missed. That's proof that Trump set it up and cut his own ear and this and that. No, it isn't. It's interesting that they all missed, and it might be evidence in support of a ridiculous claim along the lines of Trump doing whatever it is that people claim he's doing, but I don't think it's proof. People also, I urge people to really focus on the difference between evidence and proof. And when I say focus on the difference, I mean even in just talking about it. If you say, oh, that's not proof, right. Like I talk about the logo of American Glass Research, I talk about the guy who created American Glass Research. That's not proof that anything happened. I'm presenting it as evidence in support of a larger theory that is gathering all kinds of evidence from all kinds of areas. Ballistic evidence and acoustic evidence that Cullen is doing, other people are doing. We're getting now, we were talking to Lee about this whole 4-dimensional visualization, and people are really taking off, getting into that, producing elements and content and different things. That's going to be great. We're going to learn a lot of things throughout this process. But like, what's happening right now, as far as I can see, I do believe the perpetrators of this were caught off guard. They didn't expect to miss. How did they miss? A lot of smart people have been telling us this. So one of the elements of evidence that Cullen was able to glean from the Stewie Dave, Shaky Dave video was this subsonic gunfire on Street when he got hit. What happened? We see this giant explosion out the back of his head. Jackie Kennedy gets up on the car, climbing back there. All that stuff we know because of the Zapruder film, and without it, we wouldn't know it. And so let me just correct myself. We're setting aside for the moment Betty Oliver and Orville Nix, and I forget the name of the fourth woman who's purported to have shot a film from up in a building, but JFK assassination rumor has it that there's as many as 4 8 or 16 millimeter films that were recorded in Dealey Plaza that day, but the only one that's ever been shown to the public is the Zapruder film, and it's appeared in various versions. The first time it was ever shown, as I recall, Robert Grodin presented it on Geraldo Rivera's, I think it was called Good Night America or something like that, Late Night America, some Geraldo Rivera program in 1975. Robert Grodin comes on there, shows this, it's a black and white print of the film. And if I'm not mistaken, Abraham Zapruder was shooting reversal film. I believe what he had there was a particular type of 16 millimeter camera that used a preloaded cartridge. People should check this, I could be wrong about this. I believe it used a preloaded cartridge that you could run through the camera for a certain number of minutes and then flip the cartridge over. You'd open the camera and flip the cartridge, and the purpose of this cartridge was loading film is difficult. It's easy to ruin it. When you open your camera, you know, people who are under 40 or something won't know about this, but when you open the camera, the film would be destroyed. So this cartridge type film was a consumer format where the film is sealed. You're only exposing 2 or 3 frames when you open it and take it out of the camera. But this film, you then would flip the cartridges and it would shoot 2 8 millimeter strips on either side of the film. That film would then get processed and cut in half by Kodak, and they deliver to you 2 8 millimeter films that you could run through your home 8 millimeter projector. And the purpose of this was Kodak was in the business of manufacturing 35 millimeter motion picture film for professionals, 16 millimeter film for news and, you know, the war people who needed a more portable camera or just wanted a more economical way to shoot a movie. 35 millimeter film and the associated processing and printing is incredibly expensive. And so this is what Abraham Zapruder was using, and so we can see some of the artifacts of that, knowing how that technology worked. Look, we're looking into the sprocket holes here. You wouldn't see that if you loaded this film into a projector and projected it. You would just see a 4:3 aspect ratio television in 1963, up until the 90s actually. You'd see that fairly square aspect ratio just to the right of the 2 white holes. Those white sort of rounded squares are sprocket holes that are used to mechanically drive the film through a projector. So if we didn't know that, you'd be like, oh my God, there's 2 UFOs, giant, big white aliens appeared in the middle of Stewie Dave's fucking film. No, Dr. Martenson, those are sprocket holes. And I would want to know the film stock this guy shot. I'm not studying the Zapruder film right now. And if I said anything about it right there that was inaccurate, it's because I don't have notes in front of me and I haven't looked at the thing in years and years. But there's a lot of weird things going on with the Zapruder film, including how it was first obtained by the government. They went and snatched Abraham Zapruder. He's on maybe ABC News or CBS News, like shortly after the assassination, talking about how he had recorded it on film. And Dan Rather, remember, breathlessly, he's a young cub reporter, and he says, I've just seen the Zapruder film, and the president's head can be seen lurching violently forward. Well, why did he tell us that? Everybody with eyes can look at the thing, and you can realize, if you haven't seen the Oliver Stone movie, JFK, I recommend you watch it I really like that film. But remember, there's that scene, and actually what we're looking at here, we wouldn't have if it wasn't for that Oliver Stone film. Oliver Stone spent a lot of money and used the highest technology possible in 1990s to restore this film to full resolution, scan it from the original elements, and we see the president's head move back and to the left. That now has been made famous by Kevin Costner, and we know that if somebody shoots you in the front of your head, physics and the force will drive your head backward. You know, people will say, bullets do weird things. He could have moved backward from getting shot in the back. That's a lot of explanation. I think regular people look at that and from their understanding of physics, not from having a PhD, but from living on planet Earth, tell them that looks like somebody shot him from the front. Dr. Corsi's new book talks about how he shot from the front and the back. I think that's correct. There's multiple shots. And again, that's the triangulation of fire. It worked in Dealey Plaza. They missed in Butler, PA. Well, so Cullen's been talking for days about subsonic ammunition. And I can't remember if he had identified it in an audio track prior to Unsteady Dave, or if he just logically presumed that would explain some other evidence. So let's talk about that logical presumption. Because obviously when we don't have a lot of evidence and we're trying to figure something out, we need to form a hypothesis based on what we think might have happened given the available evidence. And then as new evidence becomes available, particularly as independent citizen investigators, if we were the cops, or if we had the type of investigative powers that the FBI does, where people would be compelled to truthfully answer questions and had to give over evidence that we said give to us. First of all, if I was Stewie Dave and that Secret Service guy came over to me and said, hey, what's your name? I'd say, I'm a regular guy. I'm doing nothing. Why do you need my name? I don't have any weapons. And only if they said you're under arrest or you're gonna be under arrest would I show them that stuff. But I didn't even know that until like 2 years ago. Other people are gonna say, oh, you're an idiot, Jason. But like a fool, I thought the police were actually supposed to, enforce the law. And sure, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and whoever we want to, Bill Clinton, Joe Biden, these people are corrupt. But our neighborhood, local law enforcement people, they're you and me. We're simpatico. They're here to make sure that New York City stays safe. But no, bullshit. We've seen tons of evidence that the cops are stupid lackeys, most of them, if not all, who just do what they're told because they don't want to get fired, they don't want to get sued, and frankly, they don't want to do much of anything other than stand around, text people, smoke cigarettes, not get shot, and then retire in 20 years and get like 80 grand a year to start their own private security company where they can tell everybody that they were an NYPD whatever, which is actually just an excuse for being a stupid fat dick in a blue costume. Not impressive. So the point is, there are people who want to inject false information. Even in that Zapruder film, it's widely known that 2 or 3 frames have been omitted. And I think there's actually a lot more manipulation in the Zapruder film. I looked into that a bit. At some point in the future, that might be interesting to examine again. But you also have to remember, in 1963, there were not a lot of people who had these kind of cameras. I mean, I guess it might have been foolish to anticipate that nobody would, but it would be absurd to anticipate that an event in 2024, there'd be less than 100. I don't think you could have less than 100 cell phones in the air recording Donald Trump at any event. There's 20,000 people there. So is that 200 phones if 1% of the people had phones up? It's more than 1%. I'd say 98% have a phone on them, maybe certainly 90%. And so, yeah, I think you're talking about thousands of phones that would have recorded this, and we would be foolish to presume that would not have been anticipated. So, see, again, there's aspects of research that are scientific, and there's aspects of it that rely on you just kind of like hold your finger up to the wind and smell which direction the whiff of FBI bullshit is coming from. And that's just, I don't know, that's like being good at baseball. You just either are or aren't. You can hone the skill, but it's just there, or it isn't. And so when this unsteady Dave bullshit footage showed up, I first said, well, it's interesting, but this is so stepped on and recompressed and crappy looking. How do we really, and the guy's got a text overlay. We know he's altered the video. Even if he hasn't done it maliciously, that can introduce artifacts. So there's some other weird stuff about this Stewie Dave. Like, in other words, people remember this video that we were looking at the other day. What was her name? Mia Cops? Let's
take a look at what happened.
Hey! 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 Down! Take it!
Okay, so my point is, we talk more about Eric and what he's doing there and all that stuff. My point is, Mia shot that video on a phone that looks like she bought it this year, last year, 2-3 years ago. That's a modern looking cell phone. The video looks good. Maybe it's an iPhone. She uploaded it to YouTube, and I'm sure if we compared it to the original video on her phone, there would be changes. And actually, even just uploading the way she did, it's not the best, but it's what she's done is the best example that we've seen from any other eyewitness that I'm aware of. And I mean the best example of preserving the integrity of her evidence. See, when you go to court, if we just want to crap around on YouTube and X for the next 30 years talking about this, and I'm sure there's people who do, and I'm not saying that I'm not going to continue talking about it, I'm just saying there's some people who are just, my impression of Matt Taibbi, for instance, he's more interested in writing books about the Twitter files and getting speaking engagements and seminars and building his accounts and making money than he is in actually prosecuting the individuals who are responsible for it. People who are new to the channel may not be aware that I went to Twitter 4 days after Elon Musk bought it to tell him that the FBI had taken the thing over and to give him the specific names of the people in the FBI and at Twitter who I alleged masterminded it. And it wasn't the people that we saw testifying in front of Congress. Surely they were involved, but I'm talking about people who started this in 2010. People can get onto really any of the sponsor exclusive channels, but if you want to read the Twitter coup, I've got it in the articles section on X. I've got it on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. It's free. In those locations, you can watch a video of me reading it on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, and just, follow on X at JG_CSTT. There it is at the bottom. JG_CSTT. Follow on that, and you can read the Twitter coup. My point is, I'm trying to actually do something with this information. The requests to people to sponsor the show, yes, I need money to be able to pay for my home and my food and continue doing this, but what I'm trying to do is actually impact this investigation in some way that will hopefully be useful to eschew bad information and amplify the best information. So I'm not going to tell anybody not to investigate anything that they want to investigate. Go ahead and do it, but don't email me and tell me you need to be, follow George Webb's lead to the Uric Armory. I'm suggesting that people that advice because our buddy Tanner Uric there, he owns an armory, and if you start rolling up on his house, I don't know what he's going to do. You could get shot. He owns a Tesla and a house and a 370Z. That causes me to believe the guy might have some money and he owns a business. He might know a lawyer, and if you start defaming him, he might sue you. I'm not telling people not to investigate things. I'm just telling people you got to be responsible. You can't just find somebody with the same last name and start investigating them forever until you get, this is what George does. I mean, excuse me, you can do whatever you want. No one should take any action whatsoever based on anything that I say, apart from becoming a sponsor of the show on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth or Substack or Subscribestar or Patreon. That is the only call to action I ever make. If you want to do research on the internet, that's quite useful. If you have personal knowledge or some experience, or for instance, I keep forgetting to finish this thought. Someone who is quite obviously a gun expert and a viewer of Crowdsource the Truth, they sent me a message where they said, you know, both John and that other guy were right. If the person is shooting this type of round, 10 miles an hour of wind isn't really going to make a difference. But a subsonic round, because it's going much more slowly, and I don't know, is it larger? Is that part of what? I don't know, but these guys who are experts in guns, they seem to know. And so he's saying that a subsonic round would be very susceptible to wind. How's it going? So maybe a slower moving, larger round, maybe it's just too windy to accurately target. Who knows? Maybe they didn't account for that. Who knows? I don't know, but this person offered a plausible explanation based on facts of how physics and things he's an expert in work and his own experience. And then somebody else, or maybe it was the same guy, talking about terminal performance of projectiles, meaning what the bullet does when it hits the thing. And he says it's, you know, it's a very unusual science. I've heard that before. People who know about guns and bullets, because if you think about it, it's just the most analog thing in the world. Every item that you're shooting is unique and different than any other item you could possibly shoot. Micro, you know, areas of weakness in something that might cause it to break in one place before the other, that are microscopic and that you don't know until the thing is subjected to the extreme stress of having a bullet fired at it. And I'm talking about not just objects, but your skull. What kind of vehicle is this? That's some Chinese something. Look at that. What is that? Huh. Might be the first Chinese car I've seen on the road in New York City. Sorry about that bad zoom. I had a lot of sun in my eyes and couldn't see the touchscreen controls. See, there's a lot of things that affect the performance of everything. In that instant condition, I had no idea that that Chinese car would show up and that I wanted to flip the camera around to a wider shot, and we missed it. How could he miss? He's a professional camera operator. He does this all day, every day. The conditions were just so that I missed. So, but we do have more evidence from the Stewie Dave video. It's anecdotal. It's as good as if someone told us, yeah, I was there, I heard X number of shots, I'm a gun expert, these were subsonic, I saw the guy in the window. Just telling us that would be as useful as Dave's video. So Dave's video is not completely useless, but it is absolutely not the Zapruder film that Mr. What's-His-Name thinks it is. And so, by the way, let me give people another example of what I'm talking about and why I allege this whole thing with Stewie Dave came about. They had it sort of sitting in reserve, right? When you're planning this, you're going to say, okay, we know that guy Cullen, he's doing all of his snap bang, what is it? What is it? Crack thump analysis. And other people are doing that. People know about that. See, the reason why I showed that clip of Rod Wheeler last night, and John, when you see this, don't tell me not to show things on the show. There's a reason why I'm showing it. I'm helping you. It wasn't about George. It was about Rod Wheeler, who I also suspect of being an FBI UCO. The guy used to be a Washington, D.C. Metro PD detective. Why did he meet with us to talk about that? That strikes me as the kind of guy who has no damn time for a stupid podcast at all. He's involved in lawsuits that he's not supposed to say anything about. Who would do that? What does he need that for? That guy, at that time, was in the business of being a private detective to do, but I don't know about that industry, so who knows? He was a private detective, and he's talking to us about Seth Rich. Why? It really doesn't make sense in the context of a guy. And remember, Crowdsource the Truth was, nobody was watching it then. And in 2017, Joe Rogan had not signed a deal with Spotify for $150 million legitimizing in business minds the role of podcasting. Tucker Carlson hadn't started his own podcast. Podcasting was still being laughed. He's a cop. Why would I trust him? And he was lying. The reason I brought it up is because the last thing that he told us that was kind of like a bombshell in the Seth Rich case, an FBI car was broken into. The FBI was offering like some money for, I forget what, but there was stuff stolen out of the car. You can watch that video. I just put it on again yesterday. But one of the things stolen out of the car purported to be a gun with subsonic ammunition. And we'd have to go back and review the lies in that video to understand exactly what the deception was. But it occurred to me that this is what he was doing. He was trying to lay the groundwork for plausible deniability as to why did ShotSpotter not, and even George asked him about ShotSpotter. I don't think I had ever heard of it, and I definitely remember we subvert that and undermine it. We're not going to come at it head on, because that we subvert that and undermine it. We're not going to come at it head on, because that might be too difficult. The reason they're doing this is because maybe Chris Martenson publishes a tweet and it doesn't get near 6.5 million, and they're like, hey, this guy Cullen is starting to steal the thunder for all of this waveform analysis and the ballistics research. You better throw a banana peel and, you know, skid out his car and get him derailed. So there's a lot of things that they're going to try to do. To do that, obviously, you know, if they can't control Twitter through Elon Musk, or they don't want to yet reveal that they still control Twitter, Cullen's not that big of a fish. They're probably saving that for something that we can't easily anticipate right now. But if they can't remove him from a platform, what they want to do is create some incident that will cause people to not believe his information. And what better way? This is the same thing they tried to do to Charles with the 33,000 allegedly stolen, hacked Russian Hillary Clinton emails, and Peter Smith. That plan didn't work either, and I didn't even know it at the time. That didn't work not because I got involved. That didn't work because Charles is too smart, and they just had the wrong angle on him. I don't mean to imply that Cullen is not smart. Cullen is very smart. They just had such a tantalizing angle. They're constantly trying to figure out, what is it that you want? If it's crack and hookers, Hunter Biden, we got you set up. Money, cash, a lot of people will take that. You want a big audience on your social media platform, you want a show on Rumble. They got all that. But then when they run into somebody like me, where I'm saying like, no, I don't want money, I want to just, you know, do Crowdsource the Truth like this, where I have individual viewer sponsors who go to subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth, or sometimes select the most economical way to sponsor the show on odyssey.com/@crowdsource the truth. They want to convince people that you shouldn't go there, that you shouldn't subscribe to the show, and they have a lot of deceptive ways of doing that. Might be with your computer, your internet, how you're trying to access it, whatever. Just send me an email on truth@crowdsourcethetruth.org if you're ever having a problem with any of the platforms. And certainly Subscribestar and Odyssey are super great about addressing technical support issues. Some of the other ones are not as good as that. But anyway, the point is, they don't want people to go to those platforms because they're all set up. And when I started, they were all set up to ruin people. But some more of the issues that really clued me in to Dr. Martin being a dunce. See, the issue is, so John said, oh, well, this is the available evidence and it's good enough for this and that. I get that approach, and in certain circumstances, that is great. Let's say you go to a restaurant and you meet whatever her name is, Jessica Zapruder. I don't even think that's her name, but you meet some descendant and they say, oh, hey, by the way, I never told anybody this, but we have the original reversal film that my father shot, and we'll give it to you. That's another important thing. Reversal film is you process what's in the camera and you get what goes in the projector. And I do believe it was reversal film that he shot. Now, that's good if you're a home movie guy who doesn't want to pay to process the negative and then print an interpositive, and there's a very expensive to deal with film. So some of these consumer film formats were invented to mitigate some of that cost, and reversal film was one of those things. I'm aware of how it functions, but if we were going to do a forensic analysis at the highest level of the Zapruder film, I would do more research. I would talk to old guys who were Kodak engineers but are still alive, and I'd want to know every nuance of the reversal film versus negative film versus printing your film to an interpositive versus all the different things that you can do with film. And I'd want to know if anything that we're looking at in the thing that we're evaluated was introduced somehow by this technical process. And if I don't even know what it is, how could I ever make that determination? So if you're starting out with a video that the person giving it to you tells you, hey, I'm a 20-year-old dunce who doesn't know that much about anything, but trust me, I handled this video like an evidence department. I mean, he's got his TikTok graphics on there, his at handle from Twitter. This is not an evidence video. It's not evidence. And then people say, it is evidence. No, because you see, this is still a crime. When I left the apartment, the Senate was talking to people about punishment, meaning the Senate is aware that somebody got killed 2 weeks ago, and that was a murder. And we can't just say, oh, no, the guy who did it is dead, so the case is closed. No, we have to investigate that. And if we find out that other people were involved in the murder, they have to be charged with accessory to murder in addition to any of the other crazy crimes. So why? Again, I didn't tell John Cullen not to look at this evidence. In fact, we did a whole show about it last night against my wishes. And it was a good show. John was able to show you what he saw there, but for me, and I'm not telling anybody else to do this, I'm not going to look back at that Stewie Dave video except to deride it, because there's so much other much better evidence to look at, particularly evidence that's coming at us from a senator. Now, why did I say that other video wasn't evidence? Because if there's going to be a trial, I mean, like I said, if you want to talk about this on YouTube ad nauseum, fine, it's evidence. We could screen Lord of the Rings and I could tell you it's a documentary about New Zealand. That doesn't make it true. You could think that, but you're kind of wasting time. If you're interested in being entertained by Lord of the Rings, it could be great. Pop a beer and sit back and enjoy. But if you actually wanted to learn about the forests of New Zealand, that's a bad way to do it. And I don't need to watch the whole 9 movies to know that. So the better evidence that we have, like here we got this thing. I think this was, what is this from? Somebody just released this email. Now we need to authenticate this. And what do I mean by authenticate? I'll talk about that in a minute. But the thing that's interesting to me about this, it's an email talking about the creation of the Advanced Research and Capabilities Department within the Secret Service. Well, what the hell is that? What sort of advanced capabilities do they have, and what sort of research are they doing? Are they doing extremely advanced research into how to put a fake audio track on a fucking shaky video from an idiot? They might. Is that considered an advanced capability for a bunch of dunces who can't even do the thing that they're hired to do? By the way, if you're a cop in New York City and there's this much crime, if you're a Secret Service agent and the one thing you're supposed to do failed and somebody got murdered, you are a fucking idiot. You need to be fired. Sorry. I don't back the blue because you put on a uniform that is blue. You have to enforce the law. You have to. Not stand around texting and not paying attention. So that's good evidence. Someone should investigate that. Something else strange that I discovered about Stewie Dave. This is a good person on Twitter. Now, I don't know this person, but Bobby O has brought up a lot of good stuff. He's talking about how, so Bobby O was referring to that video that I showed earlier, where, let's look at it again. I'm talking about Mia Kopp's video. Pay attention to how quickly Eric DeLeese reacts to the bullets being fired and compare that to
Take a look at what happened. Hey! 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 Fuck that! Dad! Take it! Protect the president!
Fuck was that shit?
So, and then back to this tweet from Bobby O. He's basically saying, this is very interesting. This guy immediately reacted way earlier. And I agree. Eric, like, immediately after the first shot, starts jumping around and screaming, and then Dave comes in and he says, bro. And by the way, this is smack in the middle of when he's not responding to Cullen for requests to come on the show and to me for a request for this unmolested original copy of his video. So to me, this is like, wait a minute. This guy, he said he's too busy to talk, but here he is on Twitter defending Eric DeFelice. How does he know that guy, or does he? Why is he defending a random person? He says, us Butler people are very familiar with firearms, an overwhelming majority of us own them, and we know what they sound like. Everyone knew from the very first shot. Well, that's not what Mia Kopp's video reflects. In fact, she even says, what the hell was that? And I happen to know, I speculated about this the other day, but Eric DeFelice himself told me he was drunk. I believe he specifically said he had, I don't remember he said a couple or 3 or 4, but he had had more than 1 shot of tequila. That is strong booze. And it occurred to me that why is the guy with 2 or 3 or 4 shots of booze in him, why is he reacting like Spider-Man? He's the first guy in the audience to hop to. It just seems strange. And now we've got Stewie Unsteady Dave commenting about that. See, the problem is what we're trying to do here. I wanna remind people about our departed friend David Hawkins. I get very sad when I think about David because, you know, he's another one of these guys who is a genius, but it's sometimes difficult to deal with. And people know that we had stopped doing shows for a couple of months before the end of his life. And we did that because he was going in a direction that I just felt wasn't interesting or productive and was repetitive, and that people weren't interested in listening to. I felt like he was in a little bit of a rut. I gave him a bunch of advice for how I felt the show might improve, and also, you know, financially to help him and all that. And I don't think he was doing this on purpose, but like everybody's got their own way of working, and we just weren't able to make it work. And being under a lot of pressure from all the lawsuits and other shows and everything, I just told him, David, I think we should. I set him up to teach him how to do his own podcast, and I didn't just like ditch him and throw him to the wind. I wanted to make sure that he had a way to continue earning money and keep his audience, so I helped him learn how to make his own podcast, and he went and was doing shows with this guy, I forget his name, but what happened was I had contacted him and said, you know, David, I think it might be a good time to restart the show, and we were going to do that within like a week or 2 of that conversation, and then he died. So I am very sad that there wasn't really an official reconciliation, but David was an incredibly generous and intelligent man, and I do not recall ever seeing him. No, I have seen him angry, but he never, even him being angry he was a very, very interesting guy. But you know, his whole show was about reverse engineering crime scenes. And the reason why I'm being so hard on Chris fucking talk to that guy. The reason I'm being so hard on this guy is because David Hawkins' reverse engineering of crime scene, he codified this. It went right to the technology to find the technological signatures of the crime and then reverse engineer it from that. So if you start out looking at a piece of evidence, calling it a film, putting people into the mindset that it's a film. You might say, oh, this is no big deal. We knew he was talking about a video. So I go back to the epidemiologist conference and I'm talking to them about a bacteria. They're supposed to know I'm talking about a virus. But when do we transpose the correct idea on the wrong statement if the speaker is talking about something completely wrong? So we're not looking at a film. We're looking at a decimated, reprocessed, handled by the FBI piece of shit video that, as far as I know, doesn't really contain any breakthrough evidence that hasn't been gleaned from elsewhere. Yes, it's got images of muzzle flashes coming out the window. However, that was immediately rendered irrelevant, in my opinion, because we had a release from Chuck Grassley. This is an official release. This is evidence that can be authenticated. A photograph from inside American Glass Research that shows a sniper position behind an open window. Now, do people see how that window is opened and how it operates? From this angle, you can see it opens outward like that, hinging from the rear and sticking out of the building. Now, the person with this camera moves slightly to the right, and they're looking further out the window, but we're on such an angle to the open part that it just looks like a straight line. You see that just to the right of where those people are sitting, looking right at Trump in the same exact direction that this gun is pointing? Did people see that? What the hell was that sniper position shooting at? If the guy on the roof was killed, and they're telling us he's the only shooter, even without this photographic evidence, going to eventually be able to figure out who shot and from where. And hadn't Cullen already determined from acoustic evidence that shots were coming from that window? We knew that already. We could tell from the press conferences and the congressional testimony that it was a total mess in terms of organization and communication among law enforcement agencies in that American Glass Research building. And I don't have this graphic with me right now, but separately, that Chuck Grassley report showed the map that the Secret Service had created and given out to all their people, like here's the venue layout and the security zones, zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This building wasn't even in the zone. It wasn't even on the plan. So does that seem to indicate that everyone who received this plan had good and clear information as to exactly who was going to be in this building? Or does that seem like it was totally disorganized, perhaps deliberately, to confound whoever was there on the ground and make sure that somebody could get into that room to fire a sniper rifle at President Trump? And so now the other thing that we get from these videos that we have that are quite interesting. Now wait, oh, maybe this is it. Yeah, right. Oh, so here's another example.
Excuse me.
What?
25 which way? This way or this way?
What?
25 east, west.
East?
No. 32 is 25 west 18th Street.
That's going to be closer to Fifth Avenue, that way.
Huh?
Yeah, way that way. That's going to be just,
No, this is number is.
go that way, dude.
Huh?
That way. Anyway, this guy, who is this guy? People were saying his hands look chopped up, cut up, something. I didn't notice that. But he's wearing a Secret Service outfit and he's inside the building. What is that? Look at that. He's got an iPhone just poking out. I just noticed that this morning. That's strange to me. He's got that poking out in such a way that looks to me like he'd be having it recording all of this, but it's not a body cam. That looks like a clandestine recording this guy is making to me. Why would he do that? Oh, I cut out before we showed, does this guy know Agent Dirty Sanchez? We've got two suspicious individuals in Secret Service black tactical gear. One of them has an iPhone sticking out that looks to me like, there have been times I've gone to the police precinct and stuff, and I'll be in the apartment, I'm like, I really want to record this interaction, but I know the police don't want me recording in the precinct. So you get like a pocket shirt and you put the phone in and it's like, is this conspicuous with the camera just sticking? What if I do it in my jacket and my jeans? There's no way that you can have the lens of a camera phone sticking out of a pocket, in my opinion, and have it not be conspicuous and a fairly obvious indicator that you're intending to record something that you shouldn't. But even if I'm wrong, we now have evidence that somebody in that building, and well, we have evidence that somebody in the building was wearing a Secret Service uniform and he had an iPhone with him. Well, what else can we determine from this very interesting and verifiable, authenticatable evidence from Chuck Grassley? Well, people were saying, oh, Cullen, the window didn't break, and other people said, what do we see on the window there? We have a screen. How can we tell that's a screen? Well, go to Twitter and zoom in, but you can tell. The reason that we can tell that there's a screen on that window is that this is a very high quality photo taken from a modern iPhone, real similar to the one that dude had sticking out of his pocket. So now we know someone with an iPhone, or I presume an iPhone, I can't tell that it was, something with a camera at least as good as a modern iPhone, which that guy is demonstrating that he has, seems to have taken a picture in a room where a senator and the police who released that to him now admit there was a sniper position. We've heard sound and we've seen bad evidence that gunfire came out of that window. The bad evidence is Unsteady Dave's manipulated video. And by the way, I keep insulting it because what else have we seen in terms of bad evidence? Oh yeah, a leaked law enforcement photo on the very first day of Maxwell Urich dead on the roof. Thank you, sir, for walking the bicycle on the sidewalk. You can't just yell at everybody, but even that guy didn't want to be talked to. So we got that photo of Max Urich. Well, was that leaked by a police officer who said, oh, you know what? Something dirty is going on here, and I'm going to straighten it out? Or was it deliberately leaked for some other purpose? Now, people saw that photo that I recreated of Max Urich on the roof. And you might think, but Jason, you're manipulating evidence. Well, no. Sorry, this is something that somebody did to my photo where they manipulated the evidence. Did people see that? Watch that again. So a lot of people have seen this tweet, and thanks to everybody who's retweeting that. I had a tweet that went overnight to 1 million. That gets the attention of this disinformation operation that I'm talking about. So my tweet, and I'll explain exactly what I did. I took the Chuck Grassley released body camera footage, and people saw that was mostly redacted. You couldn't see very much of whoever it was on the deck there. But there were a couple frames where you could see through, you know, somebody's arm or just a little hole revealing a piece of the guy. And so I went through there. Well, first, let me show you what was done. So somebody went on Twitter, they took my image, and they retweeted it. I don't know if it's this Turner TV or somebody else, but I didn't like the tweets that Turner had around there. They added video to it with this person kneeling down. Now, I don't know what that adds in terms of evaluating the evidence. In fact, I can tell you that adds nothing. And you say, well, no, it's video, but let's look at the video.
Look what happened.
Did people see what's happening there? Okay, that is audio. That is non-diegetic off-screen audio being added to this. That is a film editing technique to juxtapose in your mind the image of this guy on the roof.
Take a look at what happened.
With something that not entirely obviously is not happening in that moment. They're fabricating something there. That guy was not dead on the roof when Trump was saying that and the shots were being fired. That puts a subliminal message into your head. The dead guy's not firing those shots, somebody else is shooting. Also, it's fabricated information that I believe was put there to make people think that any iteration of that image that I created is fake. And let me explain to you why what I did is not. Let's first remove the overlay graphic and I'll explain what I did. So I went into Photoshop and I took frame grabs. I took frame grabs from the, let's call it soon to be authenticated Chuck Grassley body cam footage. And I'll talk about authentication right after this. So I captured some frames and I said, well, there's some stuff obscuring this guy. So let me go to each frame where he's not obscured, and I'll take the elements from 3 separate frames where we see the guy, and I'll arrange them so that they lay on top of each other, and I'll erase all the parts of the image that are not this guy's face. I'm not adding anything. I'm using 3 separate frames, unaltered, from an authenticated image and combining them into one. I didn't even erase those 13s. You see, there's 2 additional or 3 additional, whatever it is, I can't see in the sunlight. There's some additional number 13s on that guy because that was what was contained in the original frame captures from the video. So what is authentication? What is Jason talking about? Stewie Dave shot that video in the middle of an epileptic fit. It's authentic. Now, because if you went into court with that stupid, wiggly, let's talk about the wiggle, but if you went into court with that stupid, wiggly video, the first thing the judge would say, Judge, I present to this jury of public opinion this evidence for your consideration. And the judge would say, well, now wait a second. Where did you get that? And you'd say, I got it from stupid Dave. He was having an epileptic fit, and then he wanted to put it on TikTok, and he's all worried about copyright complaints because he's trying to monetize all this. So he took out the audio, and he tells you he eliminated the audio, and it's replaced, and it sounds very processed to people who have experience with audio processing, and he's got text overlays, so we know that it's been re-encoded at least once, and it's 1280 by 720, so that seems like a lower resolution than a modern phone could shoot. And let's talk about the phone for a second. But authentication, the judge would say, well, how do you know that this thing that you want to rely on as evidence hasn't been manipulated? And you'd say, well, don't worry, Judge. I already know it has been manipulated. Oh, really? Can you get the original video? Well, no. The guy who shot it refuses to give it to us. Has he explained exactly what he did and shown you a breakdown like I just did? Well, no, he's being quite cagey and opaque and just refuses to let people independently examine and verify this evidence. Us in the public verifying it would not be authentication. Authentication of these body camera footage or whatever, as I understand it, and remember, I'm not an attorney, so anything I ever say is not legal advice. If you're an attorney, I could be wrong. These are my opinions, and if you enjoy hearing my opinions and weighing them against your own, maybe disagreeing with my opinions is a good way to form your own opinion. People are free to do whatever they want. I'm just letting you know, don't rely on what I say as legal advice, because it isn't that, and I'm not qualified to give it. But as I understand it, from going to court and participating in lawsuits as a layperson, the process would go something like this. If it was in the Senate or if it was in court, we'd call in the police officer whose body camera that came from. And by the way, the court is the government, the cops are the government, and so when you're starting with a piece of body camera footage from a police department with official numbers and police department crap on it, you're like halfway there already versus a shaky video shot on somebody's cell phone. But the officer would be brought into court. The evidence would be evaluated in the way that I am explaining. This is not some third generation version of his body camera video that we downloaded from TikTok. It's from the officer's camera. There would be digital forensic elements of the digital file that would correspond to that claim. And the cop would come in and he'd say, I swear under penalty of perjury that I recorded this video on July 13th and the contents are authentic. Then it would be authenticated and it would go into evidence. Now, we don't need to go through that process for everything. This is just the internet, and we don't have the ability to prosecute anyone. But if you want to legitimately present a conclusion, a hypothesis, a collection of evidence, you cannot start with shit. You're building a castle on shit, okay? So I would even go as far as proposing that everything that John was saying was exactly what they might have anticipated. And that just like with that photo of Max Urich, when we got the image, see, I was alerted to the fact that it's been altered. First of all, it just didn't look right. It did not look, just like Mia Kopp's video looks like a video that you shot on your phone and look at on your phone. And Unsteady Dave's video looks like a video that somebody shot in 2007 with the lowest refresh rolling shutter. Steady Unsteady Dave, oh man, the burger place is super out. But Unsteady Dave turned 20, I think, on Sunday. You know, video camera cell phones didn't start coming out until, you know, the iPhone was 2006 and the first one didn't even have a video camera on it. So you're talking 2007, 2008. This kid was 12. I don't have kids. No, he wasn't even. How old was he? He was 8. How old was this kid? If he just turned 20, you get it, he was young. The point is, when do you get a kid a cell phone? When they're 12, 15, I have no idea. Even if this guy got a cell phone when he was 10, that's a 2014 cell phone. I can't imagine that. 20-year-old kids have fairly new cell phones, but okay. So not only is he not shooting in 4K, not only is he not shooting in HD, the wiggling of the building as he whips the thing around like this, like why is he unable to just duck behind a tree and just point it at the building? Why not do that? I get it, there's moments of frantic running around, but it's a terribly recorded video, and I think that's done deliberately to frustrate the possibility. And so just like with the Urich photo, I said, hey, wait a minute. This is too low resolution, too heavily compressed, and I noticed, I showed this the other day, it was cropped in a 4:3 aspect ratio to 1,200 pixels in width by 901 pixels in height. And that is a common problem that occurs in Adobe Photoshop when you have your crop tool set to inches or perhaps centimeters. I never use that. Instead of pixels. When you set it to 4:3 aspect ratio and your units are set to inches, it's going to give you something that is 4 inches by 3 inches, and it may need, you know, when it's scaling down your image, if it's doing math to make, you know, an even number fit into something divisible by 3, you can wind up with an odd number, and whoever programmed Photoshop decided we're going to make it 1 pixel more instead of 1 pixel less, so you could just crop off that 1 pixel if you really care about it being 1200 by 900. But if you just wanted 4:3 inches, this is fine. The point is there was a very small clue in there, and because of my deep knowledge and understanding of how the technology used to create that image works, my hunch started to turn into a scientifically provable. I could repeat that. I could go upstairs right now and 50 times in a row I could crop a high resolution image and have it come out to be 1200 by 901. It's a repeatable error that indicates to me the person using the software was not as careful as they should have been. But anyway, that leads us to understand that there's an original version of that photo, and what else is wrong with this picture? Oh yeah, it looks like something's wrong with the dude's ear. So where is the fake ear in the Unsteady Dave video? I don't know, but I guarantee it's in there somewhere. And I don't trust that Unsteady Dave. If he were honest, he told me he's holding out, he's going to do a documentary and then he'll release the footage, which is, I think, false, because releasing the footage does not preclude him in any way from doing a documentary. And by the way, the fact that he wants to exclusively spend an hour talking to Chris Martenson, who has refused to speak to John Cullen for years. I don't think I really was too focused on this. I didn't really know who Chris Martenson was until... Leave me alone, man. Yeah, your fucking mother needs to teach you how to act like a person, stupid asshole. That's a high school moron. That guy could be friends with Unsteady Dave. Idiot. The point is, what's going to happen now is Unsteady Dave I think needs to be exposed as a fraud, because it seems to me that there's no way whoever set up these deceptions, particularly if we agree that this picture of Maxwell Urich was conveniently leaked to convince us that the ear belonged to crooks, we need to think about why they would do that. But the point is, this is a deliberate misdirection, and it reeks of that. And if it weren't, Unsteady Dave would have released his original video. What's funny? Fucking bitch. Unsteady Dave would have released his original video because it would be more important. And by the way, Unsteady Dave, if you want to make money, releasing that original video today is the thing that you have to do, because now what's going to happen is if you don't, this will go viral and people will know that you're a fraud. What happened to Abraham Zapruder? Well, his family got paid a lot of money. First by, I think, Time magazine or Life magazine or whatever, and that is where Robert Groden was working. He was working there in the photo department, and he got access to the film and made an illegal copy of it to give it to, or I don't know if it was illegal. He somehow got a copy and gave it to, I think I've interviewed him about this. We could go back and look at it, but he gave the copy of the film to Geraldo Rivera. Then there was a whole thing with the rights and it got bought back. The point is, there was a lot of attention on the Zapruder family and they got a lot of money. Now that's a reasonable outcome if this is an historic artifact that media companies want exclusive rights to and stuff like that. That could happen. But that's also something that the FBI would do if they said, hey, stupid Dave, we're in the business of cozying up to moron 20-year-olds in this town and getting them to become social engineers and get involved in FBI bullshit stories. How would you like to do that? If you ever see anything going on, defend Eric on Twitter. You're going to hook up with Chris and we're going to give you some kind of evidence that will be used at some point later to smash in the face of John Cullen. But by the way, scientific PhD Chris, you know the guy's last name. What the hell is his last name? You know who I'm talking about. The guy, the PhD. I got that block on his name. This is why I'm sure I heard of him before, but for whatever, Masterson? No. Chris, you know who I'm talking about. PhD guy. Martenson. I think Chris Martenson said, okay, we're going to establish this as a thing, and then there's some trick in here that we're going to spring on Cullen to make Cullen look stupid and swing the popular opinion back over here so that we can control the story. Because what else did Chris keep saying? Oh, there's a Shelby Raptor. What else did Chris keep saying in addition to referring to the thing as a film? He continues to refer to crooks on the roof. So this incredible piece of evidence helps us understand that it was crooks on the roof. Why is Chris ignoring all of this photographic and other evidence that was Max Urich on the roof? Why is he capturing this dude who, by the way, I'm not telling Unsteady Stupid Dave to give me the footage or become some exclusive something. I'm just saying release it. Put it on a Google Drive. Just drag the file off of your phone onto a computer and copy. Do a checksum is what the FBI would do. That's what anybody trying to authenticate it would do. Put that on a Google Drive and let 100 people look at it. And if 98 of them say, you know what, this thing is 100% legit, maybe we've got something good. But if the first day you put it out, people start saying, hey, wait a minute, that element's not in the original video. The sound is different. This is different. There's one less crack. There's just an ear in here that's somebody else's ear. We don't know what the poison pill in that magical thing is, but for some reason, Chris Martenson wants you to think that dog shit is chocolate pudding and get a big spoon. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Please become a sponsor on Odyssey.com/@crowdsource. The truth is my favorite way for people to do it, because Odyssey, like me, they're an independent group that are doing something innovative. And even though it's not as big or expensive or robust as YouTube, it's incredibly good and it's constantly getting better. So I hope that people will support Odyssey and me. Odyssey is also flexible enough that they lowered their lowest price to allow me to offer monthly subscriptions to everybody for just $3 a month, plus a 58-cent Odyssey fee. That is absolutely the lowest amount that I can offer a monthly subscription to a video service, and I've evaluated every single video server company in the country. So I hope that people will support Odyssey and Crowdsource the Truth on odyssey.com/@Crowdsource the Truth. My second favorite, to be honest, is Subscribestar. The people running that are absolutely great. Thanks to everybody sponsoring on subscribestar.com/crowdsource the truth. Have a great afternoon, everybody. I'll see you tonight with